We have been doing this podcast for almost 2 years right now. And one thing that I find the hardest is the thing that the algorithm wants. Like, first of all, grabbing people's attention. And second, making people focus and concentrate for a long time. That's watch time. And the third is making people engage to your content. Either they like, comment, they share, or they just react to it. That's very, very difficult.
Very.
So how do you keep your audience engaged with your content?
Honestly, nowadays, as you said, it's not that easy with the algorithm, and it's a continuous process of learning.
Yeah.
And the fact that I'm doing it alone, that means I don't put much effort on learning the specific component, if that makes sense. But from my experience or what I've learned, but I took a short course on it.
Okay.
So what I've learned is that you have to focus on, let's say, one thing and one thing only per content.
Okay.
So what I usually do is if I'm editing a reel for Instagram,
Yeah.
the goal for that reel is specifically either to share. The only thing that I focus on is share and saves, because that's where I see if you get more shares or saves, that's when it goes to more non-followers.
Yeah.
So that's what usually I focus on. So I usually post like 2 or 3 times a week. So let's say on Monday I'll post only for saves.
Okay.
On Wednesday I'll post only for shares. On Friday I'll post again only for saves.
Okay.
So what that does, it makes my content even shorter.
Okay.
So nowadays I try to make sure that every content that I make is not longer than 45 seconds.
Okay.
And it should be providing the exact knowledge that I wanted to provide.
Okay.
That makes sense. So that's how I keep them engaged, to be honest. And for YouTube, honestly, I think that's the complicated part.
Yeah.
It's just having good content, bro. Yeah.
If you're in a content business, you always have to make sure you make good videos, because that's your main product that you're making.
Exactly. That's your product you're working on.
Yeah. So when you say you make content only for shares or only for sales, how does that look like? Do you, let's say, put a call to action that save this content or share this content?
No, it's more like psychology, you know?
Yeah.
What I've learned is that for me to share this video is I relate to that video, you know?
Okay.
Let's say I say that all men are dogs. Obviously, I'll get a lot of shares from women.
Yeah.
Because they relate to that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And for saves, it's mostly something that I think someone would want to learn. Like
Okay.
specifically, like, let's say I'm explaining the A to Z of how to start a podcast. So it's usually A to Z of how to start a podcast. That video is specifically for that. So for those people who want to start a podcast, would save that video automatically. So it's mostly, that's how I usually focus. Try to relate to people and provide pure education through the content within the 30 seconds. And obviously the first few words need to be really strong. You know, what the first few words say are really strong. Nowadays I see a lot of people trying to start like the climax on the start, then reverse the video to start again, if that makes sense. Then you find it again in the middle part. Yeah, I feel like that's how I usually do it, at least.
Yeah, that's very powerful, because people have very low attention spans.
Exactly, man.
So you have to hook someone within the first 3 seconds.
True.
Otherwise, he's out of there.
And what's funny is that if your hook is negative for the first 3 seconds, and there's a positive thing on the last second, trust me, they'll comment the negative thing and they wouldn't even listen to the other part. That's the crazy thing. That's the crazy thing about that.
If you think about it, it's really, really crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
But you can use it to your advantage.
Obviously.
Yeah.
What you're doing this week, exactly. I mean, I think a lot of people like to hear negatives or downfall of others more than their success.
Yeah.
So obviously they would appreciate hearing the negative side.
There's a quote that I read which says that if I tell you something negative, you will share it with 10 people. But if it's positive, you only tell one person.
Exactly. Well, that's true. That's very true. And if you reflect it, personally, I think it's the same thing.
Yeah.
If I hear that, oh, this dude cheated on his girlfriend lately, I'll share that more than this dude proposed. I mean, proposal, I think I'll share that as well.
Yeah.
But obviously, the negative things will get more share than the positives.
Yeah.